Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Win at Work podcast. You're with your host, Julian Lee here. And today I'm joined by the fantastic Nancy Juetten from Bellingham, Washington. Nancy Juetten, the bright button. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
I don't know where that came from. Now, we're going to talk about being challenged and overcoming challenges. And the COVID pandemic has kind of was a big change for a lot of people. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your story heading into that?
Sure. Thank you. Before the pandemic, I ran a successful company helping people to get known and paid for their winning ways. And I combined my publicity background and my public speaking background to teach people how to get known and get paid. And when the pandemic hit, it was as if everyone was stunned silent. Speakers, experts, and authors all of a sudden had blank calendars, and they had nobody to talk to as a mechanism to drive leads and sales and conversations and cash to their businesses. Well, because I came to this world as a publicist who knew how to work with the media, I thought to myself, what am I going to do to build the buzz about who I am so that I can create a revenue stream for myself during a really demanding time? And the bigger question is, what could I do for others who needed to do the same thing? So I doubled down on podcast guesting as a strategy to become highly visible and to share my message with people far and wide. And I was able to create a revenue rush for my products, programs, and services. So I quickly pivoted to train others how they could do that too without hiring an expensive booking agency or letting overwhelm or tech take them out. And I've since trained thousands of people to do exactly that so that they're never hungry for an audience ever again.
You know, a lot of people listening to my podcast, they'll hear me talking about podcasting, and you have to ask yourself, why am I podcasting? Why are all these people talking about podcasting? And it's just a fantastic medium. Now, the question I would have to you, Nancy, is when you decided you wanted to go down that route of being a guest on podcasts, what sort of volume did you target? Like how many shows were you trying to get on per week, and how long did it take before you started to see some results?
I was sort of inspired by an old school commercial by the almond growers. And they would be these two guys standing in the almond fields, and they'd say, just 2 cans a week. That's all we ask. 2 cans a week. And I thought, you know what? If I could book myself on 2 shows a week, the right shows where there would be interest in learning what it is that I had to talk about, that my message would travel far and wide. And pretty soon people would be reaching back to me to have me a guest on their show. And that's exactly what happened. And so between the pandemic and the start of this year, I booked myself on over 100 podcasts. And I also learned about some of these wonderful podcast guest matchmaking sites that are so readily available to all of us, so that I could put my information on those sites so that people could find me by my keywords and reach to me and say, I saw your profile, will you be a guest on my show? So between me initiating contact with top shows that would be hot for my expertise and me responding to really great invitations to be guests on shows that are already well established, I managed to book myself on 4 or more shows a week. And that led to more inquiries because people would hear me and say, you really dropped a lot of value. Will you be a guest on my show? Or will you be a guest faculty expert in my mastermind? Or will you be a participant in my upcoming summit? Or will you do any variety of things? And all of a sudden, like, my calendar started getting booked with all kinds of things. And I'll just share this, Jack Canfield, the father of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, which is he won the Guinness Book of World Records for the most number of best-selling books on the New York Times bestseller list at any given time. When the pandemic hit, he got together with all his cronies and he said, what the heck are we going to do? And between him and all of his best buddies, they started booking each other on each other's shows. And they realized that the pandemic was going to be challenging, but post-pandemic, he's not calling it the new normal. He's calling it the new better. because all of us can speak up on shows without leaving our houses, deliver our message wherever we want it to go, meet amazing people around the world, and we can still be home to have dinner with our partners, play with our kids, walk the dog, and not have to have road rage or travel fatigue. It really is the new better.
And the beauty of it is being a guest is that you don't have to do all of the hard work of producing content and blog posts and all of that stuff. You just need to turn up and talk, and the host has to do all the work.
Well, but here's where I try to differentiate in this regard. I really honor and appreciate the role that active hosts play in giving me and my clients a platform to share our messages. And so I train all of my clients to go the extra mile for their host. That means listening to the show before you get on it, posting a 5-star review so the host knows that you've watched or listened to their show. That means sharing out the episode generously with everyone we know after the fact so that the host can get the currency that matters to him, which is more ears, more eyeballs, more reviews. So it's not just a matter of how many shows can I book myself on or how many shows my clients can book themselves on. How can we differentiate ourselves by being the top guest that amazing hosts can't wait to book, because we go the extra mile recognizing what the host is already doing, setting the table for us to do what we do.
And who are the people that you mostly work with, Nancy?
I tend to work with speakers, experts, messengers, thought leaders who are en route to 6 figures, because those who are already at the mid 6 figures, 7, 8, or 9-figure mark, they probably need to hire out an agency because they've got bigger fish to fry. But I'm married to a financial advisor. We have fiscal responsibility as a core value. And it really isn't that hard to learn how to book yourself on top shows. You just need to have the right mindset, have a winning method, and you need to commit yourself to mastery so you can be good at it. And if I can teach you how to do that, you can astound yourself with what you can accomplish. And then, should you decide that you want to hire it out at some point, you know what's involved, so you can be more than slightly dangerous in managing your agency to ensure that they bring you the very best that's possible and not just the low-hanging fruit.
Absolutely, just a little bit of effort to make yourself stand out. And so, step one, basically, you were talking about the podcast guesting services. Do you want to tell us a bit about those, because they are kind of crucial and a game changer, and I can't imagine even coping without using them. So tell us
Yes.
what they are, so the people that don't know can learn.
There are portals that exist today where you can upload your photo, your short bio. You can identify the keywords that represent the topics that you want most to be speaking about, and all your other relevant information, including the questions you most want to be asked, your backstory, your call to action, all the goodies that your hot topics, most importantly. But you can upload this information to some of these portals. And then as early as tomorrow, you could be served up opportunities that are suitable for pitching, that are on target for the audience that you most want to reach. And what's really intoxicating is when hosts read your profile without even knowing you and reach to you and say, I saw your profile. I think you'd be an excellent guest. Won't you please book a call? Bam. I think we all want to have more success with greater ease. And I find that these services make it very, very possible. So I'll just use an analogy for you, just based on my own family. My son is 25 years old, but when he turns 16 or 18, he starts to shave, right? And Gillette sends him a razor in the mail and says, congratulations, we'd love to be your first choice for the product you use to look great as a young man growing to adulthood. To this day, this kid's still shaving with Gillette. Why do I mention this? Because one of my favorite places to have my own information and encourage my clients to showcase themselves is a service called Podmatch. And it's just brilliant. You upload your information and people reach up to you and say, "You're exactly what I'm looking for. Won't you please book a time?" Bam. Do that twice a week, just like the almond growers. You'll be off to the races.
That's fantastic. Yeah, podmatch.com I think is probably the best one. There's another one which is called matchmaker.fm, which is good as well. But Podmatch is good because it will actually suggest people for you and match, kind of like Tinder swipes or whatever. I don't know. But
Yes.
and it'll, yeah.
So my point about talking about Gillette is I discovered Podmatch early on, and Podmatch has been very good to me. And so when I have a choice of where I'm going to spend time, I go first to Podmatch, not only because the platform is very robust and I've been booked on some fabulous shows, but I've also met the owner and I think he's a stand-up guy. And podcast guesting is all about creating relationships with people of influence. So when you find people that you have a real connection to as human beings, you stick with them. Just like you stick with Gillette if you're shaving and you're 18 years old as a young man starting out in life. So I think the tool you use is the tool that's going to work hardest for you. So Podmatch, matchmaker.fm. There are also podcast guest collaboration sites on Facebook that you can join. There's all kinds of places that you can start, but that can be a recipe for overwhelm for people who are new to this. So start with Podmatch.
Definitely. Start
Create
with
some
Podmatch.
wins.
Yeah.
Create some wins for yourself, and then realize that this is a lot easier than you ever thought it could be. And the money that you were going to invest in a podcast booking agency, you can deploy in another way that could serve you even more powerfully in a way that perhaps won't be quite so simple for you to learn.
Absolutely. And because, getting the consistency, like you set the goal of 2 cans a week or getting on 2 podcasts a week. And it's very difficult to do it consistently if you're doing it on Facebook and reaching out to people. But I find with, say, Podmatch, you can just easily get that consistency that you need to either get guests or guest on a podcast. And it takes that headache out of it. And if you wanted to, you could have, rather than using a podcast booking service, if you wanted to do it cheaply, you could just get a VA on Fiverr, show them Podmatch, and just go, "Can you just check this every day?" And anyone that matches me over 65% or whatever, book them in or whatever. There's all sorts of ways of doing it. So that's fantastic. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about was, no, what I wanted to mention was, it's not just enough to go on these sites. You need to differentiate. And that was one of the real strong things about Nancy that I noticed, was that she had actually written a profile where I could see specific points of value that she was bringing. It wasn't just kind of vague, like, I help people become the best person that they can be and all that. It just doesn't stand out. But I knew straight away, I go, okay, there's 3 strong topics that Nancy's bringing, which will be interesting to me and the guests. And the other thing Nancy did was you actually messaged me and you said, "Look, I've looked at a couple of episodes," and then you gave me a rating. Is that right? So before I've even noticed Nancy, she has done that for me. And I mean, that's really, what more are you looking for? So, and then I checked her profile and it was strong, and boom, that's how you do it. And that didn't take you long, did it?
No, and it reminds me of another story. I come to this work from having been a publicist and working with people in the news media. And I remember the anchor for the Seattle Evening News speaking up at an event. And she said, "I live and die by the deadline, and bringing the truth to my viewers is my highest priority. Don't come to me at the cocktail party or at the grocery store and say, 'I have never watched the news, but the news should watch for me.'" She says, "It's such an insult. You should, if you want to be seen, heard, and celebrated on the media that matter for your message, do the host the solid of hearing, seeing, and celebrating the show. And then you've done something to demonstrate that you're not just trying to schlep your book, promote your book, sell your stuff. You're trying to create a relationship even before you've even shown up in their internet front door." And then another point I want to make about those hot topics. I've been writing bios and helping people make their bios better for the better part of 15 years, and blah, 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 boring, lackluster, not blockbuster bios are putting a lot of hosts to sleep. Well, another thing that's putting hosts to sleep are generic topics. And so when you say, as a guest on your show, I'll share the 5 biggest podcast guesting mistakes not to make and what to do instead, the host instantly knows, oh, I can see how we could talk about that for 15 or 20 minutes. It would be interesting to me personally, and it would be of service to my audience. But if you just say, I help you get unstuck, or I help you with your mindset, like, ask yourself, of all the people in the world that do that thing that you do, how many other mindset experts are there? And what's special, different, and preferred about the way you talk about it, or something disruptive about the way you talk about it that would actually be a juicy conversation? Because that's what's going to turn people's heads.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. And, Nancy's all about bringing value wherever she goes, is my impression. And that is a very different mindset too. We talked about people that are just kind of selling something, or they're just telling everyone all their skills and qualifications. And that to a host is boring. That to guests is boring as well. So, come at it from the perspective of, hey, I've got this to show you and help you, and let's have a fun, value-packed exchange. And it's a much better way to go, and it does get you what you want in the end, doesn't it, Nancy?
We're all human beings doing the best we can to serve and grow and profit in the best ways that we know how. But at the end of the day, if you don't like the human beings who you've met, you're running in the opposite direction. So just like with public speaking, the connection you have with your host and the audience trumps everything. How much you know, time in the trenches, how many awards you've won, whether or not you're having a real genuine conversation with someone that there's exchange of value. Like, that's what I teach my clients to do.
There's a famous quote by a long past sales trainer called Zig Ziglar. Have you heard of him? Yeah, you've heard of him. Of course you have. And he said that the best way to get what you want is to help people get what they want. And that's basically, rather than saying, hey, this is what I want, give it to me, help everyone around you, and the magic happens. And tell us about your course, Nancy. So people that are thinking, you know what, I need to start getting on podcasts and getting everywhere. I don't know what to do. Nancy can help me. What do people need to do?
Well, a couple times a year, I lead something called the Podcast Visibility Live Lab. And it's a multi-day virtual training where for an hour a day, I'm pouring into you the 6P system to prepare, position, prioritize, pitch, ping pong, and profit. So I guide you through this 6P system so you can gain a little bit of mastery about what each piece involves. And some of the people that take this training actually book themselves on shows after the 3rd day. So if that is exciting to you, it's completely free. It's virtual. And then I should ask you, is this live now, or is this going to be delivered? When will this show be on there?
We are live now on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Okay, well, this is very exciting. May I drop a link?
Well, I put get known, get paid. Is that the one?
The one I want you to go to is podcastvisibilitylivelab.com, because you can register right this very minute for the next one that's coming up on June 6th. And I promise you, you will be astounded by the degree to which I will generously pour into you, so that when you are complete with this experience, you will be more than slightly dangerous as a brilliant podcast guest that a top host can't wait to book. And if you are guided to want to enroll in my Broadcast Your Brilliance Bootcamp subsequently, so you can feel my velvet boot of accountability to kick your butts into a whole new gear, well, I'll be able to share with you how you can do that too. Just today, clients of mine told me that they booked themselves on 20 shows in the last 12 weeks following my methods. And now they are completely transformed from being in the dark to being in the know and on the go. And that's really the transformation I want to affect for as many people in the world as possible. So Podcast Visibility Live Lab is the place to run and not walk, to claim your virtual front row seat. And I promise you, you will learn what to do and how to do it in a world-class way, because anything less is simply not good enough.
So if you would like to become less than slightly dangerous and get kicked in the butt with a velvet boot, go to podcastvisibilitylivelab.com.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, it's a pleasure thanks for having me. I hope it was fun for you. It was certainly fun for me.
It was fun for me, and I think it was fun for everyone and everybody out there listening and watching. Thank you so much for doing so, and I'll see you very soon on another episode.
Thank you.